Senator, it's good to see you. You just in the last couple of hours, literally, I mean, this story just came out. You asked the Inspector General at the Defense Department to investigate DOD's role in facilitating this outrageous gift. You're asking them a lot of interesting questions, information you want. Walk us through what you're requesting from them and what you hope that they will turn up through this process.
Well, this acquisition of this $400 million plane really stinks to high heaven. Everything is wrong about this deal. And apparently, even if you accept the administration's own account of this, it was offered directly to the Trump Foundation. They checked with their own counsel, and that would be illegal. It would violate the Emoluments Clause, it would be unconstitutional. So basically, they decided to launder it through the Defense Department to see if they could use the Defense Department, the Air Force, as an intermediary and launder this deal to see if they could somehow make something unlawful, unconstitutional, now somehow copacetic. But it does nothing of the sort. It simply embroils the Defense Department in this scheme. And one of the things that, I'm demanding to know from the DOD, and we'll find out these answers, whether we get it from the DOD or other sources, that is, what is it going to cost to retrofit this thing? How long is it going to take? And if this plane isn't going to be ready for 2 or 3 years until Trump is basically on the way out the door, basically what this is all about is getting a $400 million aircraft for Donald Trump when he leaves the presidency. That's really what this is about. And I was struck in listening to your opening discussion about the fact that not only is this the first major trip of Donald Trump during his presidency, it was the first major trip of Donald Trump during the first Trump administration. And why go to the Gulf in both cases? Why make that your first presidential major visit? It's a little bit like that famous bank robber said when he was asked, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Donald Trump is going to the Gulf, not because it's the most important region for the United States of America, but because that's where the money is, and that's where the money is for Trump and his family. It's where the Gulf deals are. It's where the stablecoin deals are. It's where, the enrichment of the family is. And meanwhile, the rest of the country is left in the lurch. We're paying more for our airfare. We're paying more for our baggage fees. But Donald Trump doesn't like having to ride around in Air Force One because the plane is getting too old for him. He wants this palace in the sky.
He seems emboldened, I think it's safe to say. Not exactly an outrageous thing to say. I mean, he did some of this in his first term, certainly plenty of it. But I've been thinking about this Supreme Court ruling on immunity and how much it may have emboldened him. And I know you think about this a lot. You and I have talked about this a lot and what it could prompt. Do you think that that ruling has prompted him to be even more brazen in the second term?
Absolutely. Let's not forget, this is a convicted criminal who's now the president of the United States. You give a convicted criminal immunity and you make him the most powerful person in the world, and he's going to abuse that power in innumerable ways. If we were concerned in the first Trump administration that Gulf nations were trying to endear themselves to Donald Trump by buying whole suites at his hotels, whole floors at his hotels, that is chicken feed compared to the open graft that is going on now. And we can thank John Roberts for that. The most significant decision of his tenure as Chief Justice is this terrible immunity decision. And to hear the Chief Justice the other day bemoan the state of the rule of law in America, well, thank you for that opinion that told Donald Trump that he can get away with just about anything. And, of course, the people around him know they'll get a pardon from him on the way out the door, so they also feel immune. But in terms of your question earlier about what can be done about this, among other things, among the litigation and other efforts to try to stop and expose this graft, we need to make the Republicans wear this corruption like an albatross around their neck.
So Democratic Congressman Richie Torres of New York is calling for an ethics investigation into President Trump's plan to accept a $400 million luxury jetliner from Qatar. In a letter to multiple government watchdog agencies, Congressman Torres calls out what he describes as a, quote, flying grift. And Congressman Richie Torres joins us now. He's in Washington along with our Caddy Kay. Caddy, take it away.
Congressman, what is it about the plane? I mean, there are lots of business deals being done. There are the meme coins, but somehow this plane has got your Republican colleagues who've been remarkably silent about Donald Trump's activities so far actually speaking out. Why you're calling for this investigation and why focus on the plane?
Well, it's too shocking to ignore. And instead of draining the swamp, as Donald Trump promised, he's filling the swamp to an extent never seen before. He's filling the swamp with a Qatari Air Force One and a personal meme coin. Donald Trump's receipt of a $400 million presidential palace in the sky, maybe the largest gift that's ever been conferred on any president by any foreign government. I've described it as a flying grift, and he should be facing accountability. But I have no confidence in the Department of Justice. As you know, the Attorney General has put DOJ's stamp of approval on a transaction that violates the U.S. Constitution. Like the Emoluments Clause prohibits any president from receiving any gift from a foreign government without the approval of Congress. And we have to send a message that no one, including Donald Trump, is above the law.
Congressman, good morning. I'm reading a quote from you the other day. You say, quote, in the cruelest irony, Air Force One will have something in common with Hamas, paid for by Qatar, if this deal does go through and become Air Force One. We should underline again that experts say it would cost $1 billion and perhaps take until after the president's term to retrofit this plane to make it safe, secure for a president of the United States. So we put that to the side. I'm curious what you make of the Republican criticism, what it says about a group on Capitol Hill, as you know better than anyone, who's very reluctant to criticize or cross this president, that they have really, to a man and a woman, been speaking out against this idea.
Well, look, the Republicans have largely been complicit. Instead of holding Donald Trump accountable, the Republicans have been enabling a pattern of presidential profiteering. I mean, not only is Donald Trump receiving a flying palace from the Qatari royal family, but he's been caught selling access to the White House to the 220 highest bidders for his personal meme coin. Meanwhile, a separate foreign government has agreed to give $2 billion to World Liberty Financial, which is owned by the Trump family. And if you invest $2 billion in foreign deposits in U.S. treasuries yielding 4% a year, that's $80 million in profits. So there are layers and layers and layers of grift and influence peddling to which the Republican Party has largely turned a blind eye. And the Republicans face a test. We have to ask the Republicans, where does your loyalty lie? Does it lie with the Constitution, or does it lie with Donald Trump? Are we governed by the rule of law, or are we governed by a cult of personality?
I wanted to ask you about something that you have recently said about Senator John Fetterman. You've come to his defense. He's been considered by many to be incapable of continuing service there in the United States Senate. And you've said that actually it has more to do with his view on Israel than his mental health. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I have no insight into the workings of Senator Fetterman's office, but I just find it curious that he had challenges back in 2022 when he first ran for the Senate, and I do not recall any of his critics voicing concerns. And the moment there was a change in his politics, then he suddenly became a target. Some people would call that a coincidence. I feel it's too coincidental to be a coincidence. So I'm suspicious. I've been in politics for about 20 years. I've been an elected official for 10 years. I know a hit job when I see one.
Congressman, can we take it back to your district? Because I have a feeling that I don't know how much they're talking about the Qatari plane. I don't know how much they're talking about the health of Senator Fetterman, but they probably are talking about Medicaid and what's happening up on the Hill. How would what is being proposed at the moment in the bill affect your district and your constituents?
There is no congressional district in America that has a greater stake in Medicaid than my congressional district in the Bronx. 67% of my district is enrolled in Medicaid. In my district, more than 70% of children More than 80% of nursing home residents, more than 90% of baby deliveries are covered by Medicaid. There is not a single safety net hospital in the Bronx that could survive the kind of draconian cuts that the Republican Party is proposing. So the Republican $715 billion assault on Medicaid is a catastrophe for congressional districts like mine, but it's a catastrophe for the country. In most major counties in America, both urban and rural, both blue and red, the largest employer tends to be the healthcare provider. And you're destabilizing the largest employers in America.
You know, Congressman, there's long been this belief among Republicans, whether they said it in front of microphones or not. It was there when Republicans were trying to cut Medicaid by $240 billion in 1995 to help fund tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. There was this belief that, oh, Medicaid helps people of color in urban districts. The fact is, here we are in 2025. It's people in red state America. It's rural hospitals that are actually disproportionately impacted by this. With that reality, I'm curious. We're hearing Donald Trump saying repeatedly Medicaid will not be cut. We have guests coming on this show who are Republicans who are saying Medicaid will not be cut. And yet, here are the numbers. It looks like Medicaid is going to be cut. Do we have any specific numbers right now on what the Republican House plan is to slash Medicaid funding? So let's be honest, so they can pay for it.
Mideast trip has been a cluster muck in so many ways, right? And it's because it underlines who his friends are. And those friends tend to be totalitarian dictators and people with very questionable human rights records. And I know Trump is a wannabe totalitarian dictator with questionable human rights records during this term and his first term as president. So in many ways, it does fit. But it's kind of telling how Trump has spent the first few months of his term and, during the transition period after the election, before he was formally in office, attacking his friends, attacking Greenland, attacking Mexico, attacking Canada, attacking Panama, countries that the United States has good relationships with, and frankly, very lucrative relationships. I mean, Canada and Mexico are the United States' two biggest trading partners. Billions and billions and billions of dollars, trillions if you look over the years, trillions of dollars have been made by these countries each other, like through the benefit of economic, cooperation. And Greenland has, there's is a close American ally. There's tons of American bases in Greenland, all right. And it's like, so why is he fighting with these people? But he's making kissy faces with some of the biggest butchers in world politics, whether it's Netanyahu or whether it's Qatar, like all of these awful men. So these events are a disaster just because they're happening, because of the Qatar plane thing. If you wanted any proof that Donald is aligning his country with far-right forces from Saudi, from Israel, and many other places, you're seeing it. He's not even hiding it. This is Trump's America.